Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to attempt to make this video. Right now we're in a somewhat quiet environment. Let's see if that changes. Now, I'm making this video today in order to disclose some information. In order for you to be able to see truth, the best way for you to come to a comprehensive conclusion pertaining to the subject matter disclosed in this video is by and through you researching the described descriptions. Slowly, with a mature, patient posture. So let's segue into the subject matter. What I'm going to disclose in this particular video is going to be very interesting, and when you hear any or all of the statements, well, let's just put it to you this way: when you hear at least the initial statements, you might think to yourself, "No way that is possible." But check it out. The great majority of my statements can be extensively researched at Google. Some statements can even bring you information through YouTube, and you will see truth. So let's segue into the subject matter. Remember, the only way for you to see the truth of what I'm talking about is to listen to the entire video, write down descriptions, research each description meticulously, take the data that you get from each description, and cross-reference the material in order for you to come up with a more holistic pictorial representation in your mind pertaining to the subject matter. It's like building a puzzle. Each description is a piece of the puzzle. So check this out. Now, so remember, write down the descriptions. So the first thing I'm going to throw out, this is the foundation being laid now. The first thing I'm going to throw out is that, have you ever seen the movie The Minority Report with Tom Cruise? Now, the movie The Minority Report, I'm just going to talk about what's relevant concerning why that's being brought up, because it will kind of synthesize into the follow-up statements. In the movie The Minority Report, it was about pre-crime. So they could tell by and through using some women that were clairvoyant. They would see images of crimes that were supposed to happen in the future, and then they would be displayed on a holographic type of screen concerning who was going to commit the crime, so that pre-crime police could then stop the crime before it occurred. That's what the Minority Report is all about concerning the movie. Now, so why do you think I brought that up? Well, for one, you can go to Google and type in pre-crime and remote neural monitoring. But the main reason why I brought that up is because when you watch that movie slowly, especially at the beginning, you're going to be able to see that as a direct result of what these clairvoyant women did was they saw the murder in their mind, okay? And then everything they saw came out on a screen, on a holographic screen, in bits and pieces of visual imagery. And then what Tom Cruise did was he went and he interacted with that screen in order to move around the bits and pieces of the images so he could come up with a comprehensive understanding concerning where the address where the crime was going to take place, so they can then go there and stop the crime before it occurred. Now, the reason why I'm showcasing that in this particular video, you'll understand in a few minutes as I continue to speak. So now this is going to be where it's going to get a little bit touchy. So you got to listen very carefully to my statements, my descriptions, and then my follow-up statements concerning why the descriptions are relevant. So check this out. So I got to give you first a real fast metaphorical outline of a situation presented as a small, short, itty-bitty story. Hear me out. Now, let's say if you got a couple who decides they want to buy a house. And they say most people, when they go to buy a house, unless they already, some people may already have one in mind. Maybe they found out about one through a family member or a friend or whatever. But your average person, when they go to buy a house, what they do is that they'll go on websites, concerning real estate websites, in order to go in there, see what houses are available within the community they want to hopefully live in order to be able to scrutinize the price range. They sit back and they say, I only want to spend $100,000 on a house. Then they say, we got to go into a neighborhood where our kids are going to be able to go to an elementary school. So that's another thing they got to look for in that neighborhood. Then they're going to look at, well, what's the neighborhood like? What's the makeup of the neighborhood pertaining to, admit it, a lot of people will say, what's the race of the neighborhood? It's just the way it is. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's usually the way it is. So we got a young couple that's about ready to give birth to their first kid. And so they know that in 4 or 5 years that kid is going to have to go to school. So when they go to look for a house, they also want to search the neighborhood. They want to take a look at the cost of the house. Now, why is this important? Because all these different variables attribute to what they're doing is they're searching to get a need met, okay? And they got to be able to achieve that need, get that need met based on what they can afford. So that what is then compels them to do the research. I can only afford $100,000 for a house. I got to find a neighborhood that's low crime rate. I got to find a neighborhood that has an elementary school close by, okay, and a possible daycare center close by as well. So they're going to look at all of that, okay. They're going to look at the crime statistics for that neighborhood, everything. So all of these different variables help lead their resulting decision about if they're going to buy the house or not. So what this basically is, it's a review. Now, every time they go on each real estate's website to look at each house and each neighborhood and what's in the neighborhood based on their needs, they're going to walk away with visual imagery, visual memories. So, say if they do this research on a Friday or on a Thursday, and then on Saturday they say, well, we got the weekend off, so now is our time to go back and review what we initially looked at. So then they look at it again on the internet on Saturday. Then on Sunday, they sit back and they talk to each other, the husband and wife does, and they say, well, I like this one. Maybe they did some printouts of the places that they looked at. And so they'll sit back and they'll look at what they printed out, and then they'll discuss it. They'll compare notes pertaining to each identified house, its cost, the neighborhood, and so on. So then when they get in the car to go look at each one of these houses, they're going to continue to talk about it. And what they're going to do when they talk about it is that their brain is going to access those visual memories, because they're going to continue to think about, is this really the neighborhood I want? When they get to the neighborhood, they're going to see things. Some things might be more appealing. Some things might not be appealing to them. And so they're going to sit back and say, okay, well, I don't think I like this neighborhood, so let me think about the other one that we're going to go to. And so what their brain will do is it will excite those short-term visual memories. Now, what they're doing when they retrieve these short-term visual memories is they're also incorporating those the visual imagery attached to the visual memories will pop up in the mind as the mind is contemplating where they're going next, because that's part of why they're going where they're going next. So the reason why I brought this up is because pictorial thinking that's incorporated within a verbal thought can be a part of our decision-making process. Like if a guy's dryer breaks down on a Friday and he decides to go on the internet and look for dryers, he's going to look at 5 different dryers, their cost, their warranty, what type of warranty comes with them. And then on Saturday, when he starts to think about which one he might want, his brain is going to instantly kick back those visual imageries that he's seen when he went to the websites of the appliance stores that sold dryers. So as he's thinking, okay, as he's delivering, okay, well, this one costs $300, and the little bit of visual image is going to get stimulated back into his mind as he's thinking about, do I want the one for $200 or $300? That one looks nicer, but this one's got a better warranty. And so as you're deliberating with language thought, which is left brain, it's also related to pictorial imagery, which is now your visual memory, because he did the research on Friday and he's thinking about it on Saturday. Now, let's go back to the Minority Report for a second. What was that movie about? That movie was about these clairvoyant women who were able to see. You should research remote viewing as well, because that movie is really not that far-fetched, believe it or not. In fact, you should even, now this is going to sound really bizarre, but just trust me, research the hell out of it. Listen carefully. You should also go to YouTube and Google and type in how Gangstalking victims can be non-consensual human experimentation targets. Just research the hell out of this. It's all over the internet. Part of one of the identified research projects connected to why they're being experimented on is what? Project Stargate. What's Project Stargate? Remote viewing. And what do these two women do in the movie The Minority Report? They're clairvoyant. That means they're able to see into the future. So just bear with me. Just hear me out. Trust me, this is going to make sense to you in a minute. So, now, In the movie The Minority Report, what they're doing is they're able to see an event that's about to happen, and then that visual, and they got all these electrodes on their head, and then so what they see gets transferred to the computer, and then those visual memories are seen on the computer, then incorporated within some like a light hologram, so they can be visually seen by Tom Cruise, so he can look at the background of the imagery of what they saw in order to get an address of where the murder is going to take place at, so they can go there and prevent it. Just watch the movie, you'll totally understand. Now, when you go to Google and type in at Google remote neural monitoring and memory mapping and memory stimulation, your mind's gonna really be blown. So check this out. Now let me take a look. See, I gotta put my glasses on for a second. Just hear me out. I gotta put my glasses on because this particular phone only allows me to make 33-minute videos at a time. And I gotta see how much video time has already been. Alright, so I'm already 10 minutes into it. Well, hold on a minute. Yeah, I'm already 10 minutes into it, so I gotta kind of hurry up. Okay, so, now, remember what I just said, and obviously you can go back and watch this video because this video will be put on YouTube. So take what I just said and take it aside. All of that information I just stated is somewhat part of the foundation. Now, what you want to do next is you want to think about the following. Now, in gang-stalking crimes, when the victim is being a victim of gang stalking, who's also being remotely neurally monitored, these little satanic rats, these mass murdering animals who are targeting the victim, when they're employing remote neural monitoring on the victim, they can also, hold on, I got a burp. Excuse me. I'm talking fast because I got a lot to say in a 33-minute long video. So consider this. Go to Google. Here's another description. Go to Google because this all ties in together. Go to Google and type in at Google. It's going to blow your mind. Go to Google and type in electronic synthetic dreams and gang stalking and remote neural monitoring. Now, some of the features and functions of remote neural monitoring allow these satanic rats to be able to gain a neurological access through brain and neural hacking. They're able to see what the visual cortex sees. They're able to discern what is processed in subvocal speech, which is your language, your internal language, and they're able to subvocal speech signal processing. And they're able to hear what's in or being processed in your audio cortex and much more. So, if you can create a high-definition visual production through augmented reality, virtual reality, and other types of visual graphic software, what these little satanic whores can do is they can take anybody's physical representation and put it in the software. And then they can literally move that image around and have that image do anything. They can also incorporate the physical image of anybody else or even created images of physical representations of people's bodies from head to toe. So when you go watch a movie, what you're doing is you're seeing a movie play out of physical people playing out a drama while you see dialogue, okay? And it's because the dialogue is synthesized within the storyline of the video, okay? Of the movie. So what dreams are dreams, and I'm not going to get off into the explanation of why the brain creates dreams, but what I'm going to do is tell you that what these little demonic rats will do is they can sit back and take this very sophisticated software and incorporate anybody's physical image into it and then create a drama, just like a storyline of a movie or a TV episode. And they can create any type of storyline, and then once that visual production, which has also got audio, Google voice morphing, okay, in gang stalking, where they can take your voice print, my voice print, incorporate, and then create a storyline so that when the victim is being assaulted in the electronic synthetic dream, the victim will hear in their audio cortex as they're seeing it in their dream, as they're dreaming it, as they're asleep, they'll hear the victim will hear their own voice print of screaming and yelling, and whatever else is incorporated within the storyline. So that's voice morphing, okay? Because they got to make the dream appear that it's a natural dream. Just research that. This has even been exposed on national radio shows covering this crime. So if you can create an electronic synthetic dream with remote neural monitoring and then transmit that visual and auditory imagery into the victim's visual and audio cortex as the victim is sleeping, then what is happening is that the unconscious mind is processing this. You can also then be able to auditorial and visual, you can then at that time use that type of visual production to create a visual and auditory brain train pathway and neural network to brain states, because emotions are being processed as you are witnessing the horrific graphics that are part of the makeup of the dream. So moving forward, so When a person is enduring one of these types of neurological intrusions as they're asleep in the unconscious mode, the brain will process every single second of that visual production. And the great majority of what's being exposed concerning what victims are experiencing through these artificial synthetic dreams are brutal rapes, massive extreme violence, sadistic, depraved stuff. So that then is remembered by the brain because the brain is literally processing it in an unconscious state. So it literally becomes part of the substrate of the unconscious state of the mind. Okay? And it's also done for visual and auditory brain entrainment. So, moving forward. Now, why could that be relevant? So let's say if a Gangstalking victim has a dream where they're sitting in a room and they see their own visual image sitting in a chair in the middle of a room. And at the time where they're seeing that, the perpetrators can also stimulate fear to be experienced in the victim's brain and anxiety. Research remote neuromonitoring and brain stimulation of anxiety, fear, hate, anger, the whole 9 yards. Again, this is a lot of information. The only way you're going to be able to see the truth is take each description and thoroughly research it and then tie that data into the other descriptions so you can see the whole part of what's being stated. So as the victim is seeing their physical image in the middle of a room, sitting in a chair, while in the dream the brain is experiencing fear and anxiety because they want to make the victim believe that they're in a dream where something bad's going on, right? So the victim is having a dream where they're processing their visual image sitting in a chair in the middle of a room while they're experiencing fear and anxiety. So at that time then, they will prompt the visual image to get up to leave the environment. Fight and flight are part of the brain's innate processes when the brain is sensing fear about danger. So as it's a creative dream, it's a creative visual production that's seen in the visual cortex while they're stimulating fear and anxiety electrophysiologically, okay, in the brain, in order to make the victim believe that something bad's happening in the dream, and then so therefore it's an innate human response to get up to leave a situation that's creating fear and danger, right? So, and we all know we've had scary dreams where we're kind of seeing ourselves run from a situation or whatever. So this is what's going on, all at the same time while the person is seeing their visual representation sitting in a chair while the brain is being stimulated to feel fear and anxiety. So they're trying to trick the brain into believing that there's something bad going on in the dream and that the victim's going to get up and try and get out of the room because they're sensing that something's going on that's bad in the dream. So the victim gets up and then they see all these doors in the room. They're alone in the room, they see all these doors, and so they run to the door to leave because fight or flight is part of how the body and brain reacts to fear. They know all that. So they want to make this believable to the brain. It's a natural instinctual response to run or fight when the brain is perceiving fear and anxiety concerning danger. So the victim sees their physical representation sitting in a chair while the brain is experiencing fear and anxiety. So the victim then looks up and they see what's part of the visual production, a bunch of doors that are in the room. So the victim gets up out of the seat. This is a manipulated visual representation being shown in the victim's visual cortex to make the victim believe that that's their choice in the dream to get up and leave the room because they feel fear. So then they get up and they go and open up these doors, and every time they open up, there's it's a room with like 20 doors, okay? Just practically right next to each other. So every time they get up to open up a door and they open it up, guess what's there? A brick wall. So they're feeling intense fear while the brain is, they're literally stimulating the physical part of the brain of fear, while they're literally stimulating probably heterodyne anxiety onto the victim, because that anxiety is nothing but electrophysiological response. So while they're experiencing fear, while they're experiencing anxiety, and then they basically just had the visual image of the person get up and try to escape this room, and every door they open up has got a brick wall there so they can't get out. That's done in order to program the unconscious mind that when they're experiencing fear and anxiety and helplessness, trying to escape something that's making them feel like they're in danger, every time they open up a door to leave to escape that situation, there's no escape. Right? Now, let's segue into the second part of this. When you have a Gangstalking victim who they've made homeless, because they're making men and women homeless all over the country concerning this crime, intentionally through this crime. Now, Google all my statements. Now, so say if you got a woman who they made homeless, and then the woman has already been a victim of this crime for years, and so they know what the victim has experienced because they have forced these experiences upon the victim's life. Then they start tracking that woman to wooded areas, and they start stage and shit between the victim and the other homeless people, and a bunch of other stuff. Now you got to remember, massive amounts of other stuff have happened to this victim through this crime. Okay. Now, so if they see that the victim is overtaking things that are happening to them, that are still happening to them, because you got to remember, the harassment is about creating responses, thinking responses, emotion responses for heterodyning. And that's a whole nother subject matter, even though it's very related to the overall campaign. So they got a victim who's homeless, and the victim is now being hit with electromagnetic weapons and directed energy weapons and massive amounts of high levels of ultrasonic sound bone conduction. So they know that when any human being is perceiving danger, when they know they're dealing with a victim who knows what they're experiencing is related to these technologies, they know that when they hit anybody with these technologies, whether the victim is aware they're being hit with it or not, they're going to leave. If you're a victim of these technologies and you don't even know that you're enduring them, you're going to know you're enduring something, because when you leave your home, you won't be enduring them. They'll purposely not force you to endure them when you leave your home. Then when you go back home and you endure them and you come down massively sick, your mind is literally going to put it together that it's the environment that's causing you to be sick somehow. So you're literally even going to run even if you don't know what's going on yet. Okay? That's two innate brain functions, instinctual functions that's hardwired in the human brain through evolution, fight or flight. Whenever the body and brain is perceiving danger, you're going to leave or you're going to fight. You can't physically fight a frequency. Electromagnetic weapons, direct energy weapons, and ultrasonic sound bone conduction. So when they make this woman homeless, what they then do is track her to wooded areas and subject her to non-stop, sadistic, 24/7 torture every single second while she's there. Now, they know they're dealing with an educated victim who knows about this technology and knows that they're being hit with it. So then the victim gets up and moves 28 times in 2 years. 28 times in 2 years. And each time that victim moves, they're going to do the same thing. Each time. Each time. Now, this is done in order to create a sense of hopelessness, powerlessness, helplessness, torture, victimization, and complete powerlessness and helplessness over it. Okay? And you better understand something too. Massive amounts of victims who are reporting this are also reporting that they're enduring voice-to-skull harassment and voice-to-skull mocking as they're enduring each second of the torture. Like, aha, we're giving you cancer. Aha, you stupid bitch, try stopping us now. Aha, she sounds fucked up. Research all my statements, baby cakes. This shit's even exposed in videos online. Absolutely. So this is already part of the program, because what they're doing when they harass a victim through voice to skull with voice morphing, as the brain is in a consecutive concussive state from the ultrasonic sound, while the brain is also in a disassociated state from the brain trauma from the electromagnetic weapons and directed energy weapons, they're creating auditory and trained pathways by and through forcing the victim to hear voice to skull, which is perpetrated to harass the victim about the in real-time victimization of these weapons. So they're creating auditory brain trained pathways to disassociated states. Absolutely. So when the victim moves 28 times in 1.5, 2 years, and they're enduring the same high level of targeting at each place, what does that then do? That creates the same type of victimization in the victim's mind and their conscious layer. When you're enduring victimization in a dream, you're enduring it at the unconscious layer. Okay? Now hold on 1 second. So what is one of the main goals of gangstalking? One of the main goals of gangstalking is to create trauma, disassociation, and entrain pathways to emotional states, brain states, auditory entrainment, and visual entrainment. When you're experiencing an electronic synthetic dream, you're seeing visual imagery while there's verbal dialogue in the dream that's been attached to be part of the storyline. As a direct result, the brain is being visually and auditorily entrained as the brain is processing the visual imagery and any sound connected to the storyline of the visual imagery. That's auditory and visual entrainment to a disassociated state to an unconscious state. Then when you experience these in real-time life experiences, you're experiencing massive brain trauma, massive traumatic brain injury to concussive states, to disassociated states, to a conscious state, to the limbic system. Because as they're experiencing the torture and the body and brain is perceiving it, they're being harassed through B2K, which creates the auditory entrainment to the disassociated state, to the conscious state, and it's the same theme of the electronic dream, where you're feeling intense fear, intense anxiety. You're trying to escape a situation that you cannot get out of. So that's where they're entraining that shit to the unconscious level, while they're entraining this other shit to the conscious and unconscious and subconscious levels. Because when you're being tortured, as you're awake, the brain will go into disassociated state, and it will also try to why do you think Gangstalking victims are stating that as they're experiencing voice to skull, they'll experience sections of music being played and then dialogue, repeated identical dialogue, right after that section of music is played over and over and over again in the same way? So imagine hearing a song, a partial song in your audio cortex, like I forgot. Oh God, I was thinking of a good song to kind of try and incorporate within this video, and I forgot it. The eye in the sky, looking at you, I can read your mind. And then, so that's a song. So when your audio cortex is hearing that same part of that song over and over and over again in a loop fashion, which is called the computer to brain link, the computer to brain feedback loop, that's intentionally auditorily entraining the right hemisphere, because the right hemisphere processes melody and music. Then right after those sections of songs are non-stop looped and played in the victim's mind to force the brain into the right brain mode, they're creating auditory entrainment in the right brain mode. Then they'll start playing looped statements, verbal statements. That's kicking the brain into the left brain mode, because it's the left brain mode that processes language. So what they're doing is creating auditory entrainment to both hemispheres, while the brain is in a disassociated state, because this is happening as the brain is being attacked with electromagnetic weapons, which kicks the brain into a disassociated state, while the brain is also suffering ultrasonic sound bone conduction, which causes non-stop consecutive concussions, while the brain's limbic system is being excited, because the brain realizes it's being traumatized. Therefore, the limbic system gets activated, because that's responsible for self-preservation. So the whole goal of what these satanic filthy bitches are doing is that they're programming the unconscious mind with the electronic synthetic dreams to create visual and auditorial anchors and entrainment to an unconscious state, to powerlessness, force unconscious entrainment, while then they're forcing their in real-time life experiences to experiences these crimes, so they can create entrainment to the unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, and consciousness, to both the right and left hemisphere, to disassociated states, to the limbic system. So you are having a victim who's walking around non-stop in a non-stop traumatic disassociated state. Non-stop. And when they're doing this auditory entrainment, they'll create anchors. That way, like say if they force the victim to hear through voice to skull with voice to skull, the song, repeated song, the eye in the sky, I'm looking at you now, I can read your mind, that's what remote neuromonitoring does, right? So then whenever the victim goes into a store and they hear that song, that's going to excite that disassociated state, because that disassociated state was connected to the auditory entrainment of the lyrics of that song. And that's how they can then nearly hack you at a fucking store. Excuse my language, sorry. That's how they can then excite that disassociated state, because they're presenting the trigger that's connected to it through the auditory entrainment. So I made this video today in order to help my fellow Americans understand what's going on in the neighborhoods, because you're not safe when it comes to ignorance concerning this crime. You are not safe. Your child's not safe. Your wife, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother's not safe. And so, since these satanic rats are in every single neighborhood, town, city, county, and state in the United States, when you're walking around in ignorance, anybody can be targeted. So if you don't know what's going on in the hood, by and through educated knowledge, how are you going to be able to then determine what's going on if you start experiencing it? Because this crime is a little epidemic all over America. I gotta go because I'm running out of time. Everybody have a good day. In order for you to be able to see truth, research each description, take the data from each research description and cross-reference it to the data from the next description. Each description is a piece of the puzzle that will bring you into a holistic pictorial understanding concerning the subject matter. Have a good day.